Hi, my name is Sara, and today I'll be presenting my 6.3 assignment soapbox draft. How is human trafficking growing, and why are global efforts still falling short? In this soapbox, I'll be going over what human trafficking is, the global scope of it, why efforts are falling short, who is most vulnerable, challenges in prevention, the importance of global cooperation, moving towards solutions, and then why this all matters. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking, according to the U.S. Department of State, is a crime involving the exploitation of people for labor, services, or sex. It often uses force, fraud, or coercion, and then victims can be of any age, gender, or nationality. And this is not just a problem in the United States, but it is a global problem. As you can see, there are 8 types of human trafficking. The first 4 on top being the more commonly known, being forced labor, debt bondage, domestic servitude, and then sexual exploitation. In the bottom 4, which are less known, are organ removal, forced marriages, children of soldiers, and then forced begging. The global scope of this crisis is that there is roughly 30 million people in modern slavery worldwide. It occurs in every region, and it's even linked to everyday goods through global supply chains that we may not even know we're buying from. And then in the United States in 2023, roughly 10,000 potential cases were reported. As you can see, I have a map here of human trafficking victims in 2023. It's the most relevant one I could find. Wanted to point out the 2 highest ones, surprisingly being the UK and India, were the highest countries for human trafficking, and the United States being kind of one of the top 5, which is super surprising, especially as how we live here. Then also want to point out again that this is happening in every region of the world. Then also want to point out how many countries have no data, meaning either surprisingly, there's none happening, which is I don't truly believe, or the fact that they're just not reporting it and just don't want people to know. So why efforts are falling short? So weak or uneven law enforcement, the fact that not all countries are the same and that the enforcement is going to be different for each. And then limited international coordination. We have the UN and different problems to try to combat this issue, but again, it's very limited. And then organized crime plays a huge role between organized crime and gangs. Trafficking is usually through those kind of things. So with how much organized crime is across the world, especially in different countries, not even the US, but like in European countries and African countries and Asian countries too, organized crime is really big. So how big that is, traffickers are usually coordinating through them. And then poverty and inequality, and then advancement in technology. Who is most vulnerable? Again, anyone can be targeted, but more at-risk groups include children and teenagers, homeless or runaway youth, migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, and then marginalized populations. Challenges in prevention. Again, we talked about it. Weaken enforcement systems, the gap in them, but also gaps in comprehensive data. As you saw in the map a couple slides ago, some countries did not have any data, so we truly don't know how big human trafficking is. And then again, structural weaknesses in temporary work programs, which means that again, we have programs that try to combat human trafficking, but world ones or even country-specific ones, either there's not enough people interested in trying to help combat it. They've been in it for so long and they're not seeing any progress, so they're just trying to change their work field, or overall fact that these programs are not receiving enough funding. And then also 82% of certain visa holders reported at least one exploitative tactic. This just shows that even if there is prevention and we're trying to stop it, 82% of visa holders who are going from different countries or seeking asylum somewhere are seeing some kind of form of this. Global cooperation matters because we have to track frequently crossed borders. So other countries who have open borders or opener borders, especially in African countries or Asian countries or some of the less modernized countries, even in Europe, traffickers are very good at knowing which countries have open borders, so being able to take groups of people or women or children across these borders and not getting caught. Because usually think of if there's a group of people in Kenya who are being trafficked, and if Kenya has an open border and the traffickers just take them out of Kenya, we don't know where they're going, and they'll be really hard to track and find. And then not a single country can solve this problem alone. Again, like we talked about, being able to come together as a globe and stop this matter. I do believe if the whole world put their effort into this could be a problem that's stopped instantly. And then overall, it requires shared intelligence, stronger legal frameworks, and the coordination and enforcement. Moving towards solutions, the researchers are emphasizing right now that there needs to be a stronger international cooperation. This seems to be the highlight of this soapbox, because this is truly, if the globe could come together and if countries, not just a couple, but all of them, if not mostly all of them, this problem can be stopped. Stricter legal standards, prevention programs, greater accountability for governments and businesses, and then survivor-centered policies are also things that researchers are emphasizing. And the global goal, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Target 8.7. This was a thing made up by the UN, and it aims to end modern slavery and human trafficking by 2030. With it being 2026 and there still being 30 million people, I think that, again, progress has been made, but it's not being made fast enough. So maybe, again, if the world can come together before 2030 and try to eradicate this, that'd be great, but this is becoming an unrealistic target. And then why this issue matters? Because mostly it's impacting a million people worldwide, and it's impacting anyone. Just think of you could think of millions of people who are being affected, and honestly, one day it could affect you or your family in some way. And then ultimately, it's violating fundamental human rights. As a world, we're trying to come out of our old ways, trying to get rid of slavery and inequality, and having modern slavery or human trafficking, it's doing the opposite. That is going against what this world wants to achieve. And then being connected, human trafficking is connected to economic and social instability. You gotta think with gangs and just how many people are being trafficked. It might seem like a small chunk of people in the long run of like how many people are in the world, but it's still a chunk of people. And then overall, it requires a collective global responsibility. As a society, as a world, we have a responsibility to these people, and a responsibility that they do have fundamental human rights and that they need to be protected. In conclusion, human trafficking thrives where enforcement is the weakest. Structural inequalities increase vulnerability, and stronger global partnerships are essential. Again, overall, addressing modern slavery is critical to protecting human dignity and justice worldwide. And just being able to stop this is going to make a huge difference in this world. Thank you for listening to my soapbox.